everyone. Today I would like to show you a little more about Intarsia knitting. Intarsia knitting is when you have more than one color per row. On Intarsia knitting, you do not carry your yarn, so there are no large loose loops. You will see that where I change yarn, I have ends, and those will be weaved in and you won't see them. On this one, if you're talking about farrow knitting, that is when you carry the loops, because you may be using two colors on, like, every other peg is a different color. So you carry the yarn along as you go, and that's called farrow knitting. So in that case, like for a blanket, if you were to do that with large amounts of loops, you would need a backing. Now I've done it with two colors, and the back of it sort of looks like linen stitch, actually. And I had no problems with the loops, but I did it with number 6 yarn. I've never done it with a number 4. The little heart stitch is a good farrow. That's what I'm talking about with farrow. You carry the yarn and you have loops. But once again, this is Intarsia. At this point in this Aztec Southwestern style blanket that I'm trying to make, there's 9 balls attached. That's the most that you have in this pattern. And I just thought that I would take you along for the ride on a row or two and let you know how easy it really is. Your setup is so very important. There's 9 balls. So, like, I have the first 3 colors that I'm going to use in a row in one box. Then the next colors I'm using in another. In this case, it's 3. And then the last 3 colors I'm using are in this one. Okay, so I'm just going to get started on my pattern. I know what row I'm on, and I know which way I'm going. The ball of yarn that I stop, like when I stop, I let this ball of yarn, I put this up on my thing and my footstool to walk away. I put this ball of yarn on there. I never stop when I'm doing this pattern. I never stop in the middle of a row if I can help it. If it's an emergency, I will grab a stitch marker and put it on the next peg to knit. That way I know what way I'm going and where I'm at. And I also check your pattern, because if you're doing a garter stitch border, you need to know what you're doing. So a stitch marker, or leave that ball out of your tote boxes. You can use tote boxes, whatever you want to use, bowls, coffee cans. It doesn't matter what you put your yarn in. I usually put no more than 3 into a box at one time. My boxes aren't very big, but it's not bad. So let's give it a try. So I'm going to start with this brown. My borders are pearl. Now I know that from this you're not going to see up close, but I do have 2 other Intarsia videos where you can see up close what I'm doing when I say I'm crossing yarns and so forth. So that was the brown, and that's all the brown in this row. So I'm going to put this brown back in the box. My next color is the cream. So I'll grab my cream. All my strings are laying right here on top of the blanket. Nothing is down in. My finished blanket is laying down here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just roll this up and go underneath anything that I need to keep it from being tangled. Okay? And when I get to this next spot, this is where I cross yarns. So the yarn that you want to use now should be underneath the yarn you just finished. So here's my brown. It's underneath my brown. So when I bring this white or cream up to the peg and wrap it, I know it's locking in that brown thread. I'm not sure if you can zoom in. It's not easy for me to do that. My setup isn't very technical or up to date or whatever. But anyway, to see this, there are, like I said, I do have 2 other videos that will show you up close how that locks that brown in. And then all I'm going to do is E-wrap to the next color. I kept this pattern really easy as far as the stitches. It's only E-wraps and garter stitch borders because I wanted you to learn Intarsia and have fun with Intarsia. But that being said, you can do all kinds of stitches with Intarsia. It doesn't have to be just E-wrap. But with Intarsia, you have a lot of just keeping track of your colors. So I thought this would be an easy one to show you. Any of these strings, just move them away from where you're knitting. I'm done with the cream, so now I'm going to pick up the turquoise that I'm starting. I do the same thing. I roll them and I go underneath any other ones that's there. And now I want to have the turquoise under the cream, which I do. So when I bring my turquoise up to E-wrap, it brings that white right up behind that peg, nice and snug. And then I E-wrap my turquoise. Push them down, put that one back. Like I said, any of these you can just lift up and move away from your knitting as you're going. I'm reaching for my next cream, which is the next color. Once again, I just roll it up a little bit and you can see that it's hanging, that I need to go under some of these so that it doesn't get tangled. Now the cross, your pattern will tell you cross yarns, it'll say cream under turquoise. So the cream yarn is under, so that when I bring the cream up to E-wrap, it brings that turquoise up tight behind it. And then of course, as you're going, you just drop these. When you're done with them, you just drop them. You will see some tails. That's where I had to change colors or change balls to get the design. The pattern clearly says on each row where you're doing that, I give row by row, almost peg by peg instruction for that row. It's very easy. All you have to do is do one, check it off, go to the next bullet, check it off. And those rows will take you a little more time. But then once you get the amount of balls you have that you need, then you'll go ahead and do, most of these are 20 rows long. After you get the setup, then it's 20 rows before there's a color change. Those 20 rows are not too bad. That's what I'm on right now. Okay, so I'm just going to continue knitting with this cream color. It's actually called Ivory. It's Hobby Lobby's brand of I Love This Yarn. It's a number 4. I'm using a 7/16 160 peg Afghan loom. Normally it's 52 inches wide for these blankets, and I make most of my blankets 63 to 65 inches long. Most of my patterns you can adapt to make them longer if you want to. Not this one though. Okay, so I'm almost to the orange. You know, you'll see all these threads hanging. That's okay, just let them there. Grab your orange, do the same thing. So I need to go underneath some, and then it's where I need it to be. The orange is under the cream, so I'll do my first. When I lock that in, I like to just do a couple at first, push them down, and then I know I can just E-wrap to the end of the orange. Okay, that's enough till I get caught up here. Just flipping these over. It's very, very easy. If you notice that I have my loom marked, it's because every 10 pegs, I mark 10 and then 10 are unmarked and then 10 are marked. It helps me with my counting. 160 pegs is a lot to count, constantly on the rows where you're changing color. So it just helps. It just helps me with my counting and to know where I'm at. You don't have to do it, but I would advise you to do it because it really does help. Unless you have tape on your loom or can number the pegs in some way, that's up to you. I don't like to write on my loom, so I don't like to do that, but okay, so I'll reach for my next cream. Same way, you just have to take it under and over wherever necessary. And then just keep them out of your way. So I locked in the cream with the orange was under the cream. The color you want to use has to be underneath the color that you just finished with. That way when you pull up the yarn you're going to use, it locks that old color in, and then you can just let it hang there until you come back around and pick it up again. You're not carrying it anywhere. I will show you the dashes when I get this row done and what it's coming from when you cross your yarns. So if you've seen enough and you know what to do, you might want to hang on until I explain the dashes that you see on the back of my blanket. Okay, so now that was cream, and now I want turquoise. Sometimes it gets a little bit more, not really tangled. I have never had tangles where I get knots. I just need to go over or under some yarns. But as you're twisting, you know, everything gets moved. That's why I say just lift these up sometimes. Make sure they're in the middle of your blanket. None on the outside. You don't want any going down in. You want your work coming from the top. I usually put the ball I'm working with on my lap. It's just easier for me than letting it pull out of there. If I try to pull it out of the bucket, it does seem like I get twisting and more chances of getting a knot. Okay, just 2 more colors in this row, and you see how fast that even working with 9 balls, it wasn't that bad. This is under a whole bunch, but it's okay. Just weave it in and out and put it underneath the turquoise. On the pattern, it'll say cross yarns, and that's what it means. Put your working yarn underneath the one you just finished with. Then lock it in. Okay, and then I'll finish e-wrapping to the end of the cream. If you make a mistake and you need to go back, that's fine. You can frog it just the same as you do any other time. When you get to those pegs where you kind of locked it in, it's okay. When you take it off to unfrog it, the color you locked in will just be hanging there. So it's not like you knotted it in. Okay, now I'm on the border. My border is purl going this way. It also tells me that on my pattern, so it reminds me. And going this way is a purl. Purl locking in is done the same way. You just pull it up to the peg, but instead of going around the peg, just come to the front, hold it kind of snugly, and do your purl. It'll still lock in when you tighten that purl up. It's still locked in, so each one will be a purl. And I always do like a U-wrap to the front for the last one. That was a row, and you changed 9. You used 9 balls. I know they're not 9 colors, but you used 9 balls to make this design. Okay, now, not sure if you'll be able to see it. When you cross yarns, it makes this beautiful line of stitching. That is what makes it all one piece. It's beautiful. You can't pull it apart. There's no seam. It just feels lovely and it looks lovely. It doesn't now because I gotta weave all these in, which we'll take care of, and then we'll show you at the very end when the pattern's finished. But yes, it'll give you the same dots down the sides. Here's where I had to add another skein. So once I weave those in, you won't be able to tell that. Here in the middle is where I had the little turquoise pattern, and you can see the little dots all the way around. And it's all one seam. It won't come apart any faster than any other knitted fabric that you do, unless a stitch gets ripped on any loom knitting, it will come apart. But nope, all one piece. Won't need a backing. Very nice design. You can make your own designs. I just use a graph paper and I color up and draw up what I want it to be, and I just go for it. And I've been wanting to do one like this. I've done the dinosaur was the dinosaur. If you saw that, it says dino at the top and the bottom, and then there's pictures of dinosaurs. That is done this way. I also did a loom knit cross on a blanket, and I also had someone do that with number 6 yarn as well, and it looks just as nice with the 6 yarn as the 4 yarn. I might have been 5 yarn on that one. I don't think I've done any of these. Oh yes, I have. The dino blanket was number 4 yarn. So yes, and the dino blanket was checkered. It was like one block of blue and one block of green, one block of blue, one block of green, all in the same rows. So take a look at that one and see what you think. So that's about all I have right now. All I'll do is I'll go back. Now I'm going back this way, so I'll be using from these buckets, then this, and then this one, and I'll be back to the other end. And all you have to do is just pull the ball out and get it to where you can pull it up here and then start your knitting. Going this way for me is how I start. So that's a knit border. And then I'll pick up, you just let a little out and put your ball in there. You know, you don't want it to be tight. And then just pick up your cream. Make sure your cream is under your brown. And you'll be doing the same thing except you're going this way. You lock it in. And then knit your cream. None of the knitting should be real tight, but occasionally where you're changing yarns in the pattern, you have to make knots. This is the only time I want you to ever put knots in the middle of your blanket. And I'm just going to show you what I do when I get to a place where I'm just going to go ahead and finish this out so I can show you how I do my knots. The knots are small and tight, and then your ends are weaved in. And I always put my knot between colors, never like right here in the middle of the white. If I don't have enough of a color to finish a row, I won't start using that particular ball. When the ball gets so small, I just use another ball. So you won't find a knot in the middle. My knots are kept, you'll see one at each corner here, and then when finished. But when I make my knots, when I tell you on the pattern to tie a knot with one color and another color, I bring them between the two color pegs, the turquoise and the white, and I tie my knot. I can't do it here, but I'll tie it and pull it way up to right in the middle of those pegs. And I'll make sure to tie it a second time. Okay, so the knot is nice and tight. That's how I do my knots. And you will find a knot at every color change. There's no getting over that. If you don't knot it, and one of your ends comes out, that will just unravel that whole, it's not really a seam, but it is a seam between the colors. So you don't want that to happen. And I know a lot of people don't like to use knots. I'm one. I don't like to use knots. I don't even like the magic knot because all you have to do is slide it open. I mean, it knots and it's so tight if you pull and pull. But if you use your pick or tool, you can pull a magic knot right apart. My grandson does it in seconds. So I'm a little scared to use them, although I have, and I haven't had any come out. But I'm just saying, I don't feel comfortable using the magic knots. So you will find me use knots, and like I said, I bring it, if this was an area with a knot, I bring them towards me and I make my knot right here. Okay? So that's what I wanted to show you today. This is Intarsia knitting. Knitting where there's more than one color on a row. You can just have the borders different. Like the borders brown and the whole blanket of cream or variegated. But say you want your borders to be solid color. So that would just be 3 balls. You have 1 ball for this end, 1 ball for this end, and then 1 ball for your middle. So you would just have 3 balls of yarn. And all you have to do is cross yarns right at the borders. And that's Intarsia knitting. That's exactly, and that's a good way to learn Intarsia knitting. Start with something small, like borders. But I promise you, if you have your setup and the pattern, you can do this. If you don't like weaving in ends, it might not be for you because there's going to be a lot of ends to weave in, and there's really you can't get away from that. You can't just cut them close to a knot and leave it hanging. That just doesn't work. It won't look nice. It won't look nice at all. All right. Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a great day.